All right, so my guest this afternoon is Eric Dudeck, and Eric is a guy who I met through coaching, and I actually started the first real estate company with your mom. So I think I heard about you and your kids and stuff like that, and everything because they wrestled before I actually met you, which was when you started with the club there and with the little guys. And tell you what, man, you're one of the better. Jordan Witt's pretty good with them. My guys started as little guys with Jordan, and but pretty good with the little tiny guys. I haven't really seen you with the older kids, so I don't know. But the little guys, you had to they were more organized looking than I'd seen them at the romper room sort of setups when at practice. But
Well, that's where it's always been funny because that's where Coach Mark Rudiger was walking by the one day and popped his head in when he saw that I switched clubs and I was running a practice in the Lincoln Way West wrestling room.
sure,
And how I drill is with one-word commands and stuff like that, almost
Yeah.
like the old karate movies and that kind of stuff. And
yeah,
right after practice, that Mark Rudiger walks up to me, "Oh, Sensei Dudeck." So now I got Brian Glenn saying it and everyone else. So
oh yeah.
now it's become a thing, but it's really, I enjoy coaching of any sport, whatever it is that I coach.
Sure.
8, 9, and 10-year-olds. They seem to be the ones that you can get control of, and they seem to be the ones that are eager to learn, and they have a lot to learn because they're finally growing into their bodies.
Yeah, 13, 14-year-olds do get some attitude every once in a while when you're with them. But that for me, that's my favorite too. But it's really out of more necessity. Being the dude in the wheelchair, the Group 1 kids, when they're 4 to 7, it's very difficult for them to take strictly verbal commands from me because I say, "Hey, put your hand on his elbow," and they put his hand on his forehead, or what they just don't. Nothing is they don't seem to listen that way. But when I get into that second group, I find it super rewarding because I still got guys that come in raw. They don't have anything yet. They don't know the referee's position. They don't know anything. So I can definitely be teaching them something. And then also, it's like there's not that much pressure as far as me goes. Like I don't have to win anything.
Yeah.
I mean, if the Group 2 kids don't win anything, they're not supposed to win anything anyway. So it's fine. You're here to learn the basics, and it's for me, it's fun. So. I find it weird too because I look at the Group 3, which is the varsity, air quotes varsity, because it's little guys, and I'm watching high school wrestling all the time now, and I watch a lot of college wrestling. Boy, that I'll tell you what, no knock on the coaches. I know it's just fine. I know just how it goes. But that stuff looks terrible compared to high school wrestling. High school, like varsity, and I mean, I think there's probably a difference if I went and watched. I know there is because sometimes we're at the same place. The freshman squad in high school versus the varsity. It's different
Huge.
wrestling. Yeah.
Huge difference.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of, even with some of the younger ones, you've got the ones that wrestle 12 months a year, and just seeing them compared to the kids who just come in during the season,
Right.
it's night and day.
Sure.
Like I tell a lot of kids, I mean, the difference between varsity and JV, or the difference between being one of the elite kids and being an average kid. What do you do after practice? Do you just go home, and are you only there at practice, or are you the one who
Yeah.
does push-ups, does little things,
Sure.
practices stand-ups, practices all the basic skills?
Yeah, and honestly, I care about that for the guys who care about winning. If they're just there to get conditioned for football, then I'm gonna say boo to you. But it is what you do outside of practice that makes the difference in the elite kids. The top kids. But there's some guys that I know we ran the hell out of him. We beat him up pretty good, and the kid is consistently 40 pounds overweight. And I'm like, with the level of activity you're doing, you must eat a gallon of ice cream every time you go home.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot of calories you're burning here, and you're still a big fat kid. But anyways, our talk, the planned conversation was to be about careers outside of college, and I came up with the idea to have a conversation about this, and I see that like on social media, you post a bunch of things like if unions hire in or something like that all the time. I think that's you, right? That's
Yes.
okay. Because I know Amy does a really good
Right.
job with your like networking for your business stuff. But so and ironically, during the podcast, I get a lot of people that have. It almost seems like sometimes the more interesting job is the job without the, and these are oddball jobs. They're not jobs like, grocery clerk and stuff like that. They're jobs like, the hair stylist, coloring lady, the makeup artist lady and stuff like that. Like those are jobs that like, and I think a couple of them had college educations, but they not in the field that they're in, sort of a thing.
Mhm.
So like I have coming up, I've got a woman who runs a dog training obedience school and stuff like that. Like I'll ask her, but I doubt she's got a college degree in dog training obedience and stuff like that. Um, so it turns out that a lot of these people, like I got a buddy of mine who's a professional muskie fisherman. He was actually, and he's a carpenter, but he's got a degree in fishery biology. So I'm sure it helps him in the musky fishing, but that's not what the fishery biology is a fishery, not fish itself. I'm sure studying fish, but you're studying how to make a lake work for itself, sort of a thing. Like you would work for the DNR, you would work for a hatchery, you would breed fish, you would do that sort of thing. Where he was a muskie guide for the longest time, and one that like a lot of people in the muskie fishing game knew who he was, sort of a thing. So it seems like a lot of interesting jobs came out of that. And for myself, I came out of high school. I got my first construction job at, just before I was 18 years old. And I never looked back. Like it was for sure. Like I was probably 6 months into this and I'm like, this got me written all over. Like I had to be physical all day. I'm picking up stuff. I'm out in the sun. Like this is everything. For me, my hobbies were hunting and fishing. Those are outside too. I don't like to be inside. So like it was the deal. And then by 23, I owned my own company, and then I was off to the races for them, but and no college degree. So for me, that was the right path. Now I don't. I always see these things where it becomes like almost an argument. Like everything becomes an argument on social media, but it's like I don't understand why it's got to be an argument. You should be able to look at maybe your child and say, you're probably not gonna. You didn't do well in high school. You're probably not gonna do well in college, sort of thing. So why not go to a trade school? Why not try and some of its connections? I mean, I know more people that got steel worker and pipe fitter jobs because they knew somebody, not because they were inclined to do that kind of work.
Well, that's a lot of things that you look at, and I try to address it with a lot of different high school kids that I work with and everything else, through sports and everything. Is college a good investment for you? And that's everything in life. It's about what is it going to be a good investment. When I hear and see on social media kids who are $180,000 in debt in
Oh
college
yeah,
loans,
easily,
but
easily.
what's funny is because the college loans are government ran, they can get loans for 180,000, but the same kid with no career, no education, no background, nothing going on, can't get a loan for an $80,000 house.
Hmm.
But you can get that
No, it's
for
ruining the
an
economy.
education for a piece of paper.
It's going to destroy the economy because all these people are coming out of college that are unable to buy a home, and you're unable to buy a home for the next 10 years because you're so far in college debt. So you're living in your parents' basement. Now, we're in a consumer-based economy, so when somebody comes out of college, they get a job and they buy a house, they buy a car, that helps the economy because the guy's selling the house and the car and make money, and then he can send his kids to college, or he can go buy something too. So right. So I mean, okay. So for me, I came out of high school, started doing construction, went down. I was probably 19. Went down to visit a buddy at ISU, and he's like, Bill, you gotta, dude, you gotta come to college, man." And I go, "Why?" And he goes, "Well, it's wonderful, booze and having fun and all this other stuff." But he goes, "I'm a B student." And this guy was never a B student in school. Like he was barely making it in school, in high school. And we went to Lincoln Way, which was, it's a tough school as far as like that go. I see, I can see they go to like a school like Lincoln Way, they go to college and like, oh my God, this is so easy. Where I see people that go to a crappier high school, maybe like a Peatone or something like that, then they go to college and they bomb out because it's like, this is way too hard. So, but I told him, I go, listen, I'm already making, $1,100 a week. I'm not going to college now. I'm 2 years into construction. I'm fine. So for me, like there was a no-brainer. There was no chance I was going back the other way. And then like it reaffirmed me in my decision when I started running into guys that were 26, 27. They had college degrees, but they were carpenters or charged. They've been carpenters for 2 years now or starting to be carpenters. And I'm like, holy shit. 6 years ago, I was where you're at and you're just here now because you tried for a year and a half to get your job in your field and it didn't happen. So, I can't say I practice what I preach because my sons, they're going to college. My daughter is like halfway through college. So,
and that's what I mean by it's a bit. A lot of parents don't sit down with the child and assess is this a good investment or a bad investment. That's why I'm big on a lot of the sports to help the kids. Without scholarships, whether it's grades, sports, whatever, it's harder to afford college to make it a good investment. The less you pay,
the sports thing's a bad avenue.
it is, but the less you pay,
You got to be like really good to be getting.
but you can get partial rights if your grades are high.
Oh yeah,
enough,
no, I'm not talking
that's what I'm
full
saying.
ride, but you need to be pretty damn good to get anything. Like D3 doesn't give you any money for sports to begin with.
No, but NAIA, and that's the problem, is too many people are looking at Division One, Division Two, Division Three.
Yeah.
And NAIA gets overlooked so quickly, and actually they almost throw out quarter rides all over the place for sports.
Yeah, but the problem with NAIA is because we looked into it. We were at a tournament in Michigan, and this guy came up and he was 19. He was, heading off to college. He's in college this year, and he was going to go to college for like it was like basic law or something. It wasn't taking law like he was going to be a lawyer. He was taking law like he was going to be a cop sort of thing or an FBI agent or something like that. So, and he's like, hey, was that your son I wrestled? And he's like, yeah. And my son was 17. He was 19. He beat Garrett. But he's like, hey, that was the toughest guy I've wrestled all weekend. He goes, where is he going to college? And I said, I don't know. And he said, you should really look into these NAIA schools because I have a $30,000 tuition that they're going to pay $28,000 of it. And my ears perked up. I'm like, oh my gosh, I better find out. I mean, I got $2,000 to give him. He can go to college, no problem. So I looked up the NAI schools, the curriculum they offer. You can't find an engineering program. I couldn't find one that was within 3 hours of here. So, like.
Well, I think it depends on what degree you're really looking at.
That's right.
And that's where, I mean, if you're looking for a doctorate, you're looking for an engineering, you're looking for these higher education classes
Sure.
or professions. Yes, and in AIA, you are going to pay a little bit more, but by the time everything's said and done, you're talking about jobs that once you really get into the field, you're quickly going to be making close to six figures.
Sure.
But when you're talking about, I really don't know what I want to do with my life, or I kind of want to go into business. Well, what do you want to do in business? Well, I don't know. Well, then why are you going to go a business degree from, a Yale business degree or one from a regular NAI like a St. Francis? Mm-hmm. Honestly, most companies don't even care what your degree's in anymore. Most companies are actually looking, do you have a bachelorette? Do you have a master's? And a lot of times, like Amy was in recruiting, and I've talked to different people in recruiters for different companies. A lot of times they're not even worried about what your degree's in.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I didn't know that, but I knew that like people put too much emphasis on like what school they go to. Like,
Yes.
Did I go to Northwestern? Did I go to Harvard or Princeton? Mm-hmm. And a friend of mine, she's got her master's from Northwestern, and she's like, no place that I ever got a job at has ever asked, like ever seemed to care where.
Yes.
I got the job or where I got the education from. And she was like, dead set that she was going to go to a Northwestern pay through the nose for it because it was an Ivy League school. Um, so okay,
Well,
so
let me go back and let me give you a little background on myself.
yeah,
Um, I went and I graduated from Lincoln Way. Um, I graduated by the skin of my teeth.
okay,
Um, my grades dropped my senior year, um, and I had scholarship offers. My grades dropped below what the minimum requirement was,
sure,
so
sure,
I actually lost them. I ended up going to a junior college, and it was funny because my sophomore year, and I was still passing classes with C's and D's, not really doing anything.
right,
Um, my sophomore year, the psychology department was offering $10 if you came in to test for. It was like a 4-hour test for dyslexia. I went in for beer money,
yeah,
you
right,
know,
sure,
and
sure,
it's a bunch of us did. And I ended up finding out my biggest problem I've had all my life, why I was a CMD student my whole life, I was diagnosed with dyslexia.
sure,
And I don't see backwards, but there's different forms of dyslexia. And my problem was um, multitasking, asking things that are outside my spectrum. If I'm asked a question, if I read a book and I was asked a question about it, if the question wasn't worded how it is in the book, sometimes my brain will have trouble transferring it
yeah,
over.
sure, sure, sure,
So I ended up dropping out of college because the problem was to retrain my brain and um, continue with college level classes. It was too much. Something had to give,
yeah,
and to get it to hope that maybe it takes me 7 years to finally just get a bachelorette because
hmm,
I'm going to keep failing classes and hope I can pass with C's and D's.
sure,
It wasn't a good adventure, and it wasn't a good investment for me.
no,
So I ended up walking away from that. I did know someone, speaking of Dominic's, I ended up getting into Dominic's Warehouse
okay,
up in North Lake. And my ex-wife's grandfather was a bigwig up there. So back then you had to know someone. And I walked in there, I'm 19, 20 years old. And my first year I made 54,000. I'm like, well, going back to college ain't worth it.
no, no, right.
Everyone I knew that was my age, I mean, no one was making
No, you're
even
going
close
in
to me.
debt right
Yeah.
there, and right, and the other you're making money. No, I get it. I do, and I mean, there's definitely like I definitely see people that are pipe fitters and welders and all this other stuff. There's a lot of really terrific trades jobs out there, and for the only problem that I have with the construction stuff is it generally will, from what I've seen firsthand, it will make you an old man pretty fast. The weather beats you down. There's just the sheer work. Now, when I was a young guy, I was in my mid 20s. I would be going up to a flying in Canada, and if I was gonna go out there and swing an axe to chop up some firewood and stuff like that, for me it was no problem. All the guys that I went to Canada with were guys that worked at Xerox. They worked on a desk, pushed a pencil. I was seriously like, and it was like startling to me that like I'm like I don't know, why don't you lift weights or something? The physical shape these guys were in was really awful. I mean, they couldn't pick anything up. We used to go. So you'd be in the boat, you drive to the edge of the one lake, and there'd be a path to another lake, a portage. You take the motor off the boat that you brought in, and I took the seat cushion, throw it on my shoulder, throw the motor up there, and then I got the 5 gallon gas tank in the other hand. So I mean, I got 40 pounds here and probably about 80 pounds here, and I got a backpack on with all my gear, and then the guy with me, he's not carrying anything, so he carries my rods and stuff, and we go to the next thing. The one guy was like, well, let me, next one I'll carry it and stuff like that. I'm like, all right, you sure? So I gave it to him. We got about like 30, 40 feet, and he had to stop and like readjust it. We got about another 20 feet, and he had to stop. He's like, I gotta rest for a second. I'm like, hey man, I really don't mind carrying it if we could just get to I gotta get in this other boat and start fishing. Like I need to get going. So there was a definitely health aspect to working a construction job that was like, I could pick shit up and I could do stuff, but guys do so much stuff wrong there too. You get a lot of guys with bad backs. You get a lot of guys that are just out of shape. Um, the diet for construction, most times it's fast food. It's really not so great.
A lot of
So
guys don't take lunch breaks, especially small businesses.
yeah,
And
right. Yeah,
push
you got a
through.
sandwich in your hand and a taping knife in the other hand. You keep going. Well, so I mean, like some of it's not the best, and then some of it's also you can make a really fantastic living, and I did when I was contracting. But you can also be in an area or be working for a boss that doesn't want to pay shit, and there's just not a lot of work around. So, and then the other problem a lot of times too, which a lot of jobs are tied to, is the economy. So the building trades for sure. If the economy takes a dip and the company you work for is not diversified, where we tried to stay, we did 30 roofs the last year before I broke my neck. In that year, we also did siding jobs, room additions. We built a couple of homes. I tried to keep it like mixed up, and part of the reason I mixed it up was I figured if the economy took a shit and there was no more building going on, well then there's always going to be roofs that got to be done. So I try to be diversified like that, and then I also did it for my guys. You know what? If you do 7 or 8 roofs in a row, oh, it's so nice to go do a framing job. You're not on your knees anymore. You're standing up. Like it's cleaner. You're not in the beaten sun. So, and I felt it was good. I'll tell you what, I love my job. Like there were so many people that I'd run into. They're like, oh, this fucking job. I'm like, really? Because I kind of like going to work. Like I like, and I mean, you know, I was the boss, right? I had 5 guys working under me, and I would show up half hour early every day. Get the job set up, plan out what I was going to do, work with the guys until 5 o'clock, tell them, all right, you're wrapping up, I'm out of here, and I'd go to sales appointments and all that kind of stuff. But and every Friday it was I'd send somebody up to the liquor store to get a case of beer. Or we'd stop somewhere and get a beer or something like that. I liked the lifestyle. I really did, and I liked it because the pitfalls that a lot of guys run into with that lifestyle is at 3:30 they're at the White Horse drinking, and it ruins their life. For me, that wasn't a problem for me. Like I could have a couple beers and not have a couple beers for a couple weeks, and it wouldn't be a big deal.
Or rain days.
Rain.
Rain days were a big one. I mean, and I come from a
I
small
hated rain
construction
days.
family, and technology's kind of curved a lot of that rain day going to the bar at 10 o'clock in the morning issue.
Right.
You
I
look
was
at
never
your,
in the bar at 10 o'clock in the morning. I would hitch my boat, get to the lake. So,
and back then you sat there for 2-3 hours listening to the AM station, hoping that it's going to blow over.
yep.
Now
Sure.
we got the phone apps that give you a rough idea. A pretty
See the
good
radar.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's nice.
So, I mean, there's still things that'll pop up, but for the most part, you've got a real good idea.
Sure.
And it's even with my business, I got lucky. My wife Amy's really she's got a business degree, so it actually helped me out with reminding me of different things. And like I said, I come from a construction family. I've got uncles, I've got my dad, a brother. I've got so many people who started businesses,
Right.
and I've known so many different small business owners. So one of my things was, just like you said, diversification. If I specialize in masonry repairs,
Yep.
so luckily my diversification, a lot of it is going in, making sure I'm subcontracting for people who do insurance jobs, making sure I'm locking up those contracts so when the economy does get tight,
Yeah.
insurance jobs still have to be done.
Sure.
Same thing, I got into doing veneer work, which is that 1 inch thick stone or 1 inch thick brick that's more decorative for the inside.
Yeah, cultured stone and
Yes.
stuff like that. Sure.
Because when people do have money, it's inside work, so that actually gives me a little work for during winters. Plus, like you said, diversification. I mean, one project gets slow, you never know what the next one brings up.
Right. So I always see, and especially I think maybe it's because I'm so involved with sports now. It's a real, I know there's parents that put their kids in sports because college. Like that's the only reason the kid's in sports. That to me is a terrible idea. You could probably spend the money you could spend the money I spent on wrestling and just buy college. I've taken my sons all over the country to wrestle, and it's thousands and thousands of dollars every year since they were kindergarten. If I put that money in an account and had any sort of return on it at all, I'd have a college education paid for, no problem. But So they put their kids in that for that reason, and like I said, I think it's a terrible idea. You can get more money for academics and everything else than you can get for the sports stuff on the general
Oh,
usually,
yes.
unless you're this like incredibly good kid. But so like if you have college is the thing, and that's what you want to do, that I have no problem with that. But so many people there, they have tunnel vision. It can only be college, and if they didn't get into college, they failed. And I think some of the people that have made, I would say, the upper part of money that I know, that I've like people I know, it's people that either don't use their college education, they have one, they don't use it, or they never got a college degree and then they went into construction. They're plumbers, they're electricians, they're that kind of trades guys, and they do quite well. The swings are tough though because if you're not disciplined with your money in construction, it can be very difficult as the employer because you can't collect unemployment.
Yeah.
For my taxes, I still have to write myself a paycheck every week, but I still am not an employee. So when you lay everybody off and they go collect unemployment, you can't.
Yes.
So you better have money socked away so that you can afford that. Where usually your college job, it's year round. You're behind a desk somewhere, like or whatever you're doing, but it's not so up and down. I mean, construction would be crazy. There were literally times where I was handed $20,000 checks every 2 weeks or every week sometimes. I was rolling in dough, and that's in June, July, and August. And then in January, you're lucky if you made $1,000 all month. So, and then for me, like I was real disciplined about it. I didn't spend money like a fool. So I could take my guys. I would take my guys to the Rockies and Lake Tahoe and go snowboarding for the week.
Well, and that's one of those things that when I started my own business, one of the things that me and Amy even sat down and talked about was the reality of how are we going to make it work. It wasn't just about bringing in paychecks. How are we going to make it work with me being a business owner, knowing that during the winter I'm not going to be working much? One of the things, and that's the thing is, we've actually had a bunch of friends who've actually learned and kind of copied a lot of the stuff we do. We end up stockpiling. We've got a bunch of shelves downstairs, and as far as a lot of our, we have a big freezer downstairs plus a freezer chest, and when during we end up realizing during like the 4th of July week, during Labor Day weekend, all that stuff, so many meats, so many different products go on sale. Well, my work is like really busy at that point, so we would go and actually start stockpiling for the winter, and we lock up the freezer, and like 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, it doesn't get open until once it's full, it doesn't get open like 2 weeks after Thanksgiving. And it's like, okay, now we can actually open the freezer and
Sure.
use anything that's in there.
Right.
Um,
Oh man, I got the two boys. We go through food like I have a monster freezer where I shop at Costco and refill that thing. But man, they'll empty that thing out in a 1 month. They can empty that whole freezer, no problem. But so yeah, we constantly out of the freezer. But so okay, as a masonry guy, is you that was a family business? Someone in your family was a mason, right? That's the
I've got a lot of bricklayers in my family.
okay,
Now, all of them are basically new construction bricklayers.
right?
So basically, all they do is they show up at a house or they work in a project and they're building everything from the ground up. The repetition wasn't for me, but I got divorced and I got custody of my 2 kids. And at the time, my daughter was 4 and my son was 1. Well, I can't go and work afternoons at Dominic's warehouse. So it's like, okay, I got to start over. And it ended up being, I took a couple different jobs, and then it's like, well, I can't be flipping burgers and raise my kids and
Sure.
pay off all the debt from my divorce.
Right.
So it was one of them that my brother actually, the company he was working for, he was the superintendent, and they 3 of their apprentices just became journeymen. With being a bricklayer downtown, with the union, for every 6 bricklayers, you're required to have 1 apprentice
Okay.
on staff, so or on site. So it ended up being one of those that I already knew how to lay brick, so walking in was easy.
Yeah.
Um, and then I went and put my time in and everything else, became a journeyman. Then the company that I was working for, the old man retired, gave it to the two boys, and they just basically destroyed the company.
That
Like,
happens, yeah.
yeah, it happens a lot, it seems
Right.
like. And so it was one of them with starting on my own. I wanted to do something different, and I got lucky. I fell into a company that fixes foundations, um, and I knew their head labor and head foreman, and they're like, well, our tech pointer is messing up a lot of the jobs. He's got some problems, personal problems. You got one of your cards on you. I'm like, yeah, here. And they gave me a call. I fixed the first job that he messed up. I fixed the second job that he messed up. And it was great because the owner of the company is like, okay, we're going to give you cash for these two, but this is what you need to do. You need to go and we like the work you're doing, but you need to get work comp insurance. You need to have regular insurance to be a subcontractor for
Yeah,
us.
right.
And he walked me through everything, and he was great with talking to, and repairing stuff to make it look like it was never damaged really intrigued me. And it was something that the more I was doing it, it was like you'd start getting jobs that were bigger and bigger challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And it was nice because you weren't doing the same thing every day. Even if you
That
kind
is
of
nice.
are,
That was our business too. Like I mean, we set tile. We did all kind. We would do windows. We would, flooring and roofing and I mean, the cedar ceiling that's in here and everything else like that. That's stuff that we so every week was generally a different thing to do, and that's nice. It really is. But I have met guys in the trades in Chicago where they're in a monster company, and there was one guy that for 30 years all he did was rubber base.
yeah.
So he worked in a commercial setting and he put rubber base down for 30 years. Holy shit! Just shoot me now.
And
Like,
that's a lot of the bricklayers I know that are older and they're almost like hunched over and everything else. Well, they've been running brick on walls for so long, and you're working on scaffolding that might not be at the perfect height because you're just making do and you're doing everything else and you're not working safely, but you're working safely where you're not getting injured as far as hurt on the job. But the wear and tear on your body is what they're not looking at. They're not looking at being hunched over for
sure.
2 hours
Now,
straight.
see, the things you're talking about there, those are my motivations for my sons to be college educated, for them to go, past the 4-year degree and get a graduate degree so that they can do, I try to explain to my sons, like, you can find yourself in anything. If you're an engineer, you can just fix things. You can be somewhere, like, I mean, one of my buddies is an engineer that goes to plants and he like just looks at the overall operation of the plant and he'll reconfigure like how they're putting something together and he'll engineer it a better way as far as like that. Like, so he engineers that. So like, you can find all kinds of weird jobs in that situation, but like I want my sons to, so that, that's my goal. So like, in this podcast, I'll play the devil's advocate and say that, no, I think that there's a lot more opportunities and the numbers bear out that if you have a graduate degree, you're going to make on the average. Now, everybody's different. So if you're a lazy bum and you suck and you're stupid, then you're not going to make a lot of money. That's, I mean, generally unless
How hungry are you?
right, unless you become president of the United States, you can be stupid and all the other stuff. But so anyways, so like, but on the general, if you have a graduate degree, you make an average of this amount of dollars. If you have a bachelor's degree, you make an average of this amount of dollars. If you just have a high school degree, it's the average of this. Now, what kind of freaks me out about that is I see a lot of guys. I know some guys that geez, they didn't even get high school. They got GEDs, after high school because they bombed out of high school and went and got their GED. They joined the plumbers union. 5 years after becoming a plumber, became their own contractor. And these guys worked their asses off and everything else, but they made hundreds of thousands of dollars, $300,000-$400,000 a year for years in that. But still, when you average it out, a high school diploma gets you under what someone with a bachelor's degree gets. Now, there's also people and the people that get the bachelor's degree that become they get a bachelor's in business, but then they become a plumber too, and then they do the exact same job. So
Well,
like
but you got the same ones that they'll get the bachelor degree and they're a manager at a fast food restaurant. You
I'm
know, you got
sure,
the other extreme
yeah,
where um, I think there's more, and I've seen in the last couple of years in my lifetime where you've got people between, say, 25 and 40 years old working at all these different fast food places.
you
And
can't knock the
I'm,
fast food
I'm
manager
not
though.
trying to, I'm not
No,
trying
because
to,
I'm not saying that like I'm hurt anyone's feelings. I don't give a shit
yeah.
about that. What I'm saying is, I'm surprised when I see someone that's a fast food manager that works full time and they make $60,000 a year, and I'm like, you do what? Yeah, I'm the manager. I'm like, oh my god, I'm sorry, and I maybe maybe I'm an ass or whatever, but I did not realize that someone could work at Burger King and make $50,000, $60,000 a year, but you can.
Well, and it depends on the company, the business, and everything else. And what is your title position? You know,
Yeah, I'm saying the
are
straight up
you
manager, not the assistant manager,
the?
not the fry guy.
And that's the thing. The assistant
Right,
managers a lot of times only make like 26,000, 28,000.
right.
But if you are the one that is fully running the store, and now what a lot of these companies, from what I've researched, a lot of them are getting rid of store managers, but they'll have like four assistant managers run it together
Yeah, it
because you
works
can pay
better.
four people
26.
$28,000 a
Right,
year rather
right.
than at 60. So it's just like everything else. They're starting to phase out different.
Whatever doesn't work, sort of
Yes,
thing. Sure, sure, sure.
but a good manager, I mean,
I was
they could
surprised to
be
see
worth the
what
weight in
people
gold.
could do when they went to work when we first got the river boats. Because you'd make chit chat with the guy dealing blackjack, and like the pit boss was making some coin, man.
Yes.
They had to work themselves up from. There was one dealer we were talking to who was there's some kind of hierarchy in the dealer world too. Like if you're a dealer and I don't know what they called it, but he started out as the guy with the broom and the dustpan sweeping up at the casino when he first started when he was like 17. Then they put him on a table and then he became the roulette guy. Wow. However it worked, but he worked his way up and he was like, going to get promoted to, I don't, there's pit boss and then there's floor boss,
Mhm.
whatever it is. But those people make some coin. The people who own fast food outfits, a lot of those people have nothing to do with the daily operation of those places. So it's actually advantageous to pay a guy $50,000 a year to be like,
Yeah.
you're the responsible one. Be responsible because this is my business. They're making $200,000 a year out of it, so it's perfectly fine for them. Um, so like I do see people that do well, and it is on hard work and ambition. The weird thing for me is that I see some people that don't have any kind of work ethic. Their work ethic's terrible. They're not real bright. And their plan is, I'm going to go work road construction, or my dad's going to get me in with these guys with, Gallagher or Pepper or whatever like that. And I don't know how it works out for them or whatever. I generally gravitate away from people who I find to be dumb and lazy. Uh, so I still don't imagine that works out because I only had one employee that I had to pull aside after about 3 weeks, and I'm like, all right, man, what did you do before this job? And he's like, I sold tractors at Sears, and I'm like, can you get that job back? I don't want to be a dick, but you can't work here anymore because you're not. Every single employee that I had made me money, and this guy was not making me money. Like every time I turned around, nothing was done. He was terrible at his job. And his job was like, carrying bags of something. It was like a chimpanzee could do his job, and he was having a hard time. So I let him go. But generally, everybody else was pretty darn good, and I was a boss that was, I broke my neck at the job, on the job with the tool belt on, doing the, I wasn't a finger pointer sort of guy. So, you couldn't get away with being lazy because I pretty much got eyes on you all the time. And I wasn't a screamer, but, I would definitely give him a scholar once. I'm like, hey, what the hell are you doing? Uh, but, so like, for the most part, even guys that weren't real bright, that had no college education, I don't think I had anyone that ever worked for me that had a college degree. They still did fine in the trades. And a lot of those people move on to other things. Now, today, I'm in real estate, and there's that, I don't think that job's going to be there anymore. Like I would not. I saw somebody online that they're like, 22-year-old son was, going into the business because his dad was in the business, and I'm like, this is a terrible, terrible idea. Like Amazon and Uber, they're all getting into the real estate business. I guess Uber's doing it in a way where they're like, you just like Grub Uber Eats, you call up Uber and they send somebody out to pick you up, take you to look at houses. That's that guy's job. So they pay him $25 a showing to go show houses. That's what he does. He doesn't do anything else. And then when you're ready to write a contract, they send somebody or do it via, DocuSign. He's the contract writer. He does that. He gets $300 a contract that he writes. So the commission base is completely different, right? So now they've spread this thing out where they, maybe they send somebody, another person in for a closing or a lawyer or whatever, and that's, $500. So now they've got the whole deal done for 5, 3, and 26. For $850, the whole deal got done. When that deal is usually a $4,000 deal on the average. So Uber's got it figured out how to do that. So they're gonna, and honestly, if you can make that kind of money, cut that much overhead out of it, that's the way the future is gonna be. So the job that I do someday will generally be gone. So getting into it, for me, I'm fine with it. I think it'll still be around for the next 10, 15 years. And then if I have a client base like I do, I'll probably get another 5 I can get out of it. But if you're 22 years old, I don't suggest it. You know what I mean?
Well, and that was part of the thing that we looked into too. When we started breaking down, if I want to start my own bricklaying company, what do I want to do? And not for today, what's going to feed my family till I retire? And, like with both my boys and even my daughter, well, all 3 of my boys, but, Matthew's only 10. But like with Josh and Nick being 16 and my daughter Kara being 20, they've all come out on jobs with me, and like I've explained to them from day one, this is plan B. Kara's in college. If you get into your trade, your profession, whatever, and it's not working out, you're always welcome to come back to a family business and we'll figure out a role for you.
Sure.
She's done a lot of the veneer, stone or brick with me. So if she's the one who takes over that part of the job and I got to open up, track down more work and,
Right.
as long as you're hungry, and that's the biggest thing is I always make sure they understand I'm plan B. You're not required to come to work for me. You're not required that you're not going to go to college and just jump in with me. Well, I prefer you go to college, but plan B is here. You have a direction. And if I'm not plan B and I'm plan J, K, L, whatever, so be it. At least whatever you try, you have something to fall back on if you need it. And they're educated in it. And, when you start getting actual money and everything else and you start seeing, you're making real money to get ahead fast.
Oh, yeah.
It makes a big difference.
Sure. I bought my boys tool belts and work boots when they were graduating 8th grade. So they were 14 years old, and they were thrilled just with that. Like they're looking in the mirror at themselves with the belt on and the boots, and they thought they were cool as shit just because they had work boots and a belt on. Peyton actually said to me, he goes, we did like the first summer where we really worked construction all summer. He's like, I really like this. I like doing that. And I'm like, oh, just, I go, you can always come back to this. In fact, you can get an engineering degree and then do this on a level that is, you're building 15-story buildings, hotels. You're doing something that's way bigger than what I'm doing here. So if you really like this lifestyle, that's fine. You can find a way here. But I really wanted them to get a college degree, get that done. And a lot of it is, listen, man, I just want you to be in a safer environment. I broke my neck on a construction job. So like I'm motivated to make sure that you're a thinker, not a stinker sort of a situation. Now,
Well, same aspect you have with engineering and already having a base knowledge of construction. There's a lot of jobs that I show up on that I inform them you have to get an engineer out here because I can't fix this wall until an engineer figures out the exact way that he wants it fixed to make it stable so it's not going to fall over and kill people.
Now, how has any part of masonry become um, automated?
They've tried. Um, there are
Like how?
different
Like it's
things.
like a machine that was going to
They
build a
had a
whole wall?
machine that would basically spray out mortar,
Okay,
and
yeah,
it would
yeah.
actually lay the brick. And the problem is, um, it wasn't cost effective. At least the machines they built so far, because you still have to get them loaded just with the mortar. The mortar sets so quickly that it's time based, so you
Right.
can't. It can't just redistribute it itself.
Yeah, because
It,
automation is always, the angle is always, people don't even see it. The angle is always to reduce one job, like get
yes.
rid of a guy. So, like, I mean, I worked for a masonry guy, like, on loan from my one boss. His buddy was a masonry guy, and he would send me off with those guys to work, and it was a pain in the ass because if you mix the mortar, like, that's what I did pretty much. I mixed mortar, carried shit. I was a laborer for the masonry guys. Boy, if I mixed that thing not exactly the way he wanted it, like, he's like, listen, it needs to hold a little bit of form, it needs to look like pudding, whatever, like that, whatever description he gave me, I mixed it too watery. This fucker would just kick over the wheelbarrow and be like, do it again. And
I
I'm like,
grew up like
yeah,
that.
I'm like, son of a bitch. So then I got to hump this thing back over there and do it again. So, but, you figure it out quick, sort of thing. But I would think that if you could figure out a way to get a masonry or a delivery system for the geez, why am I listening to
Well,
the word?
the only way that things have become a little bit automated, at kind of a small scale, you are seeing more panels being pre-done to where you actually are using preset panels.
Then I
Um,
use a crane or something to put that
well,
together.
it depends. I mean, they've got some that are already done like on wood, like the brickwork's already done on wood, and you're just screwing the wood in, and you go on
Oh,
to the
okay,
next
right.
panel, just
So it's a
like the
system sort of thing.
yes.
Yeah, right. We see
Um,
that in everything. The siding stuff comes that way.
and you're starting to see more of that. But realistically, technology's evolved with the masonry jobs in a different direction. It hasn't really evolved enough to where it can take over and eliminate the jobs. But what it's done is you've got
Well, it
cultured
doesn't. Yeah,
stone.
it
So
doesn't
you've
ever
got,
eliminate all the jobs. Like we bought roofing guns. When I first started roofing, it was a bag,
yeah,
single nails, and you were pounding nails to put the roofing down. My boss was cheap. The guns existed. He didn't want to buy them. But I remember when I went out and I first bought my first set of guns, I seriously didn't need two of my five guys anymore because three guys could go ahead and really, really, really like lay more roofing than five guys could with hammer and nails. So usually it just takes away, like I said, the mortar mixer would be gone because you got a machine now that does it.
well, we have electric rock guns now
Okay,
that you can actually get instead of regular tuck pointing. You can actually use the electric rock gun. You fill the little reservoir, but you're still holding it almost like an electric caulk gun.
right.
You still have to keep refilling it. You still have to clean it out. You still have to do everything in between. Um, as far as speed, most union jobs are bid 100 square feet of tuck pointing per person a day.
Right.
With that one, I've done 400 square feet in a day by myself in one labor.
Okay.
So, with him just basically making the mortar. So realistically, yes, I could have eliminated 3 bricklayers, for a day's worth of work by using my electric grout gun compared to
Sure, sure, sure,
doing
sure.
it by hand.
Right, right, right. Yeah, because I
But
mean that's a concern with trades jobs is that someday I mean at one time when they poured a road, guys were out there with trowels and shovels pouring a road.
yes,
Now it's a big ass fucking machine that just pours the road. And the guys just walk along next to the machine. It's not as many guys as it used to be and stuff like that. So like there are so like I want parents that have young people to guide them in a direction. My one son Peyton, I said, listen, you know, he wants to go to college and he wants to wrestle in college, and his feeling and a lot of coaches around feel like he's going to be a better college wrestler than he is a high school wrestler, and he. But he also is like, he goes, I don't really know what I really want to do. Like, I don't want to be an engineer because I like the building things. I like fixing things. I like seeing how things work. But he's like, could I make a lot of money if I didn't? And I go, son, if you wanted to come out of high school right now, they're going to graduate high school this June. I go, I'm telling you, we already have work signed up because that's what they do in the summertime. I go, I'm pretty positive that I could have you making $50,000, $60,000 in the first year that you were just doing construction. And it would be a thing that I would just help you along to be your own contracting outfit. I mean, I'll work for you, whatever. But I go, by the time that you'll be, 18 years old when you graduate high school, I guarantee you by the time you're 23, 25, you'll be making a couple $100,000 a year, no problem. He goes, really? And I'm like, absolutely. We already have a reputation with people for doing a good job. The things that we built stuff for you.
Yeah.
It comes out straight, it's square, and everything looks the right fucking way. And you like, we're not in your yard screwing around or, any of that stuff. So, and then we're usually pretty tough to beat on price and everything else. So I said, yes, absolutely. And I go, but I don't want you to do that. That's not, you can't look at it short-sighted. I go, that job, you can still do that exact same job. You can go to 4 years of college, take a business degree. You were saying like Amy helps you out immensely with the marketing and all that other stuff because of the things that she learned with her business degree. Learn all that stuff, man. You're gonna have the rest of your life to make money. Just like figure out more than have a better base.
And that's one of the things that like I've even explained to Nick and Josh and Kara is when you go to college, if you're going for a business degree, if you're going for something like that, here's the difference. You already know how to do the job.
Right.
And that's with Payne and Garrett. They already know how to do the job. They know they can figure out material costs. They can figure out all that stuff.
Yep.
But what they will take out of a business class compared to what someone who's never worked before would take, they actually are learning details that are going to better them. Where someone who's never worked before in their life, they go to college, they take a business degree, and that's why I know so many people who they went that route, never worked, went into college, got a business degree, but the little details, they don't have any on-the-job training to really know what they needed to learn still. They didn't learn any baseline education from working to go, oh, wow, that's how I need to do my books. I need to get better at this. I need to get better at that. You're thrown to the wolves. You got the education, but you don't know anything about how you have to be prepared for, like with us in construction, you might need another tradesman out there.
Right.
And
right.
you might need them out there before you get out there. You might need them out there after you get out there. What did you have to budget in? Did you have to figure it out? Do you have to find it? Do you need to tell the homeowner they need to find it?
Oh, there's so much.
I mean, there's so many different things. But when you've actually worked on the job,
right.
I see these guys who come in straight out of college. I used to see it in the high rises. And they're helping run a project. But the problem is they've never dealt with any trade specifically.
Some things I wish there was more of a like internship that somebody, because there's so many businesses. So the job I do now, for the most part, I'm a real estate broker. We just had today. I was stuck all day in continuing education, and it's fun to go there, honestly. And like nowadays with real estate, you are really disconnected from everybody you work with. So like everybody that's at my office, there's 50 agents or something out of that office. 30 of them show up today, and we're all taking our CE stuff. So we're all talking, and it's nice to see the people because we work in a virtual world now. Everything is digital. Everything goes back and forth on the computer. I actually had 2 real estate deals I did last year for friends where I was the listing agent, where I did not see the people I was working for one time because everything's just sent, click, 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 sign, stuff like that. The job was done. The attorney did the same thing, sent them all the documents to sign before the closing. Nobody went to closing except for the attorneys. They got it all done. It all got done. The money got dispersed. The title got moved and everything else. So it's nice to go in there. But the things that we were going over were not pertinent to the job. They were more pertinent. We had a whole hour on sexual harassment. I'm not going to sexually harass just about anybody that I'm working with. I don't see
I
them
don't see them.
to do it to them, but this is the thing. So I'm doing that. And then another one was ethics. We took the ethics test. I'm telling you what, if somebody in that room failed the ethics test, you're a psychopath. You've got worse problems than you can't do your job. Because the ethics questions are like, is it okay to cheat your client out of money if it's just once in a while?
Well,
Well, fuck no.
and that's where I look. That's the one thing that college bothers me with. Um, so many kids, realistically, in most professions, you could probably within 2 years, if you are specified in that profession for training, within 2 years, you could be extremely prepared to succeed in that field. And the problem is kids are going to college for 4 or 5 years and they took classic Greek and Roman mythology and they took, but how's that bettering? You took judo, you took this, you're taking classes that are not pertinent to your degree.
Right.
But it's only because you're required 60 hours
Sure.
or, you're 60 hours for the associates, 120 hours for your bachelorette. But how does that actually, that's where at times college has become big business. And that's the one thing that I'd love to see even in high school. How many kids are not prepared? The high school's preparing kids more for college, in my opinion, than it is to survive in the world. In other words, economic classes and
Well, that's for sure. And also, we went to Lincoln Way. So Lincoln Way had. So I'm not doing to take a break with the podcast, but we never let the dog in here to have the podcast, and I did today. So come here, come here, come on, get up here, come on. Now you don't have to go there. Come here, right here, right here. Get up, yes, up. Come on. Oh, really? You're gonna be a wimp? Come here, come over here. Get up. Come on, get up here, get up. Oh, really? We're gonna go. All right. He doesn't want to be on the podcast. Not today, I guess. But he's been pretty good. He's been pretty quiet the whole time.
and I started out at Hillcrest. I transferred into Lincoln Way.
Right, but I'm talking about the difference between like a Providence and Lincoln Way. Like I was surprised to find out that if you went to Providence, that there are 0 shop classes. Like it's a college prep school sort of thing, so they're not geared at all for. I mean, I was a football player in high school, and I took stupid classes like shop and like cabinet making. But I'll tell you what, I learned some stuff from those. When I started construction, I could read a fucking tape.
Yeah.
Where I probably taught most of the guys that worked for me how to read a tape. I definitely taught my sons how to read a tape. They were learning how to read a tape when they were still in junior high. But so like there's a difference between if you have a kid who I was a decent student, like okay, like I wasn't worried about failing classes, but I took some college courses after I was injured. I was a straight A student. Like I mean, I had more extra credit than what I even needed, and I think my mentality was different as to what I was going to do. Like it was more important to me to pass the class, not more than pass the class. I wanted to have straight A's, so that's what I did. Now, I would have never gotten straight A's when I was, a guy, right out of high school, sort of thing. So I even told my sons, I go, listen, the sports thing kind of screws things up for a little bit because you're pretty much going to go right from high school into college because you're going to play sports. If my guys weren't doing that, I'd tell them, hey, you could take 2 years and join the Peace Corps. Go dig wells in Africa. Go do something interesting, or do it the other way. Go get your engineering degree, then apply that engineering degree to some volunteer work for a couple of years. You always have a house with me. You can always stay with me while you're doing this stuff. Get some experience, travel the world, do those things. But I still think that there's a focus on college for everyone, and that's even people that are going for their liberal arts degree or just going to college to go to college, or going to college to for a degree that they don't know. Like my daughter's changed her idea what she's supposed to do, what she wants to do after college, like 3 times now. She's a sophomore in college. So I don't know, like I don't know what the right guideline is for each person.
Well, and I think a lot of people forget, they tend to forget about, everyone looks at you either going to the trades or you go into college. It's like there is no other option. And a lot of people forget about the military. There are a lot of benefits just signing up for the bare minimum.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
I think there
Can't
are.
even disagree with you anymore. And I come from a family that is, so my family's military story is my, let's go worst scenario. My great uncle Richie died on the beach in Normandy. He's buried in France. My grandfather is 101st Airborne. He was shot a couple times. He was a paratrooper in the European theater in World War II. This guy is the real deal. Him and 2 other guys captured a captain who was trying to get away with the Blue Goose, Hitler's Rolls Royce. My grandfather had, but he's passed away now, the keys to the Blue Goose. So like the real deal in World War II. His wife was a Marine during World War II. My father was a Marine, served a full tour of duty in Vietnam, combat vet, all that stuff. I was set to join the Marines, and my father found out and lost it. He was like, "Are you out of your fucking mind?" He goes, I was in Vietnam. I had absolutely no business in Vietnam, son. There is no one that can tell me any different. I was there for a full year. No one that was there was fighting for the reason that we were fighting for. And he goes, there's no war that's gone on since World War II that's a viable war. We should not have been in Korea. We should not have been in Vietnam. And we, for sure, as a country, you can't tell me that economically the country wouldn't be better off if we weren't, we're 18 years now, right? Where we've been in a war.
I think 19, yeah.
Okay,
Something
18
like
or
that.
19, almost 2 decades.
Yep.
They were spending $1 trillion a year on. We could have given everybody health care. We could have paid for at least state college could have been free.
When I'm saying the service, I mean, there are different, everyone's different.
I know.
And like I said,
I told myself
and that's
to
what I'm
join the
saying.
Peace
I'm
Corps.
not looking at
I'd be
it being,
concerned about sending any son off anywhere because who knows where we're going to send him.
and my thing is, there's always a National Guard. There's always, when I'm looking at the service, I'm also, you're looking at the military.
Yeah.
When I'm saying the service, I'm looking at, it could be, in police right now, unfortunately, I think that's a terrible career to jump into right now with how they're being treated in different areas too.
What do you mean?
You have a lot of, like the Chicago police, they're still not under under
Oh,
contract.
like their pensions are
Yeah, I mean,
problems and stuff?
right now there's a lot of issues.
Yeah, because I think,
beyond-
for the most part, people are pretty left and right. They're pretty good about like appreciating what a cop does.
Well,
When I
and that's
see a
what I
cop,
said.
I'm
And if you're in a really, really bad neighborhood,
Mm-hmm.
guess what? You're not going to be respected that much. Within
Well,
reason,
within reason,
depending on
and-
the situation.
yeah, and if you're policing a bunch of bad guys, you would think that you wouldn't, right? Like, I
Yes.
mean, that's
And that's really what I'm looking at. But when I'm looking at the police, I'm looking more, not the YouTube stuff from New York or any of that stuff. I'm looking at like, depending on where you're at, you want to make sure that if you're going to go into the police force, that into that service, you want to look at where are you going to go into. Just like anything, educating yourself. Are they under contract? Do they have a lot of issues? Do they have? I think you're better off as a small town police officer, at least to start. If not,
depends.
a
I
career.
don't know how that works. I know like there's a big difference between a small town fire department. Like a lot of those guys are volunteers,
Yes.
and from what I understand, a lot of those guys volunteer for like the Manhattan Police Fire Department so that they can move into the Chicago, so they can get a job where they can get paid.
It's like a stepping stone, and
Right.
that's what I mean by when I'm saying the service. I'm not just looking at the military. I'm looking at police, paramedics, even, and your fire department as other viable options
Sure.
that you don't need the college education, but you do have to go to the
Oh, I
academy
thought you were
or
saying like join the military so you could get the
the
GI
grants and
Bill
no,
and everything
no.
else,
I'm
which
looking
I think
at
would be a viable thing if it was pre 9/11, because now these get like I have a lot of friends who if they are career lifers in the military, and one of them that was in the Air Force, I think the last time I talked to him, he had done 6 tours. It's too many. It's too many
that's
times. Like
That's
like
my cousin's husband is a pilot, and I believe in the Navy. And same thing, he's been on a couple different tours and everything else.
right.
But like I said, when I'm talking about the service, I mean the big picture of not joining the Army or Marines because then I get the GI Bill and I'm going to get home grants and I'm going to get. No, you have things that like the fire department, the police academy.
Yeah,
You
just
got
to
academies
clarify what
for
I'm saying,
yeah,
so I had the same conversation that my father, who's a Vietnam veteran, had with me, and it was like, listen, sons, because I have twins, if there is a war where someone's invading this country, I would fully expect you to drop everything and join the military to
yes,
defend the country. But do I trust my government enough to take this thing that, listen, since my sons were big enough for me to hold in my hands, tiny little guys, I have had dreams and aspirations, and I didn't have children just because it's the thing to do. I had children because my plan was to be a father. My plan was to do the things that I did. My sons were going to be wrestlers when they were 3. Like that was the plan. Like they were gonna head that way, and they started doing that. Like I even asked around when they were 5. I called Jim Schlegel, and I'm like, Jim, here, my name's Bill. I got 2 boys that are this age. What do you think? And he goes, well, it's up to you. Are they in school yet? I said, no, they're not. They don't start kindergarten until next year. He goes, why don't you just wait till next year? And I'm like, all right, I'm going to take that advice and wait till next year. And I put them in there then. And then every chance that I've had in my life to teach them something, that's been my most fun thing to do. My sons, I would be confident to put them out to a construction company and say, that kid is a carpenter. He can, if you give him a header schedule, he can cut all your headers. If you give him everything that you got to give, you give him everything. He can work a skill saw like nobody's business. He can work a gun. He can work a tape. He can do all these things because they're all things that I taught this kid how to do, so I know he can do them. And then I've also taught my sons. So I'm considered a quadriplegic. I'm a dude in a wheelchair. I taught my boys how to ride a 2-wheel bike. I taught my sons how to tie their shoes. I taught everything that you would teach a kid. I mean, shit, down to, all right, we got to go to a funeral. This is how you get dressed when you put a dress shirt on and everything else. Believe it or not, son, the shirt goes on first, then the pants, because we're going to tuck that. So, like, I spent all this time teaching my sons this thing, and then in between the lines of tasks that I taught them to do, I taught them to look people in the eye. I taught them to shake their hand. I taught them to say yes and no, and don't act like a punk and everything else. And I don't care. Some of it's maybe a little bit deception even. You know what? In wrestling, there's good and bad coaches. I don't care who they are. If they're an adult, you stand there tentatively, you listen to what he has to say, and you can walk away later and decide whether to use what he told you to do or not. But you be respectful because so like I'm training my 2 sons to not be assholes I'm going to release on the world, to have a great work ethic. Like it has been a full-time job that I am passionate about doing with my sons. I've taught them how to fish. I've taught them how to hunt. So all these things, and then someone's going to tell me that I have to hand it over to the government that I see on TV. No,
well,
no,
that's the
no,
same
I'll pass.
aspect. Every year I've ever been a head coach, one of the things that I've always had done was when practice is over, every year, every room that I ever coached for wrestling, any football team I've ever ran, any sport that I've ever head coached, um, the deal was always at the end of practice, I made sure I announced, you shake your coach's hands out of respect.
Sure,
And
that's great.
every day when we leave practice. And what's funny is I had kids that I spent 11 years coaching at Tinley Park Bulldogs. I'd have kids that would go to a practice and I'd get a soccer coach from HF calling me up going, we did a freshman camp, and this one kid came up and shook my hand. I'm assuming he's one of yours, and it's one of the coaches I would know.
Sure.
And he goes, "What can you tell me about the kid?" And what people don't realize is respect like that. The coach already knows your name. If you're that bubble kid, you probably are going to be the one making the team. And just because you're respectful, and they don't realize respect's almost a lost art.
Right.
And just like you said, though, problem is you send them into let the government take care of them, whether no matter what party's in charge, it doesn't even matter anymore. No one knows how to
Oh
budget
yeah, I
military.
don't care about party.
That's what I said.
No.
It's the military aspect.
Nope.
They're all want to be big business and puff out their chests, and they're sending you over there just because.
Yeah.
There's no actual game plan
I don't
anymore.
need their
for
bodies
anyone.
or minds permanently damaged because of oil or because of anything else. There are literally tens of thousands of really bad people all over the planet. We only seem to kill ones where there's a lot of oil. Like if you go to Africa, there's all kinds of people chopping little kids' arms off there, but we're killing people in Iran and
In
Saudi.
the Middle East compared to South Africa, which is real bad too.
Right. I mean, we have, and then we don't kill some people. That doesn't make any sense. 15 of 19 hijackers were Saudis.
Yeah.
Those are our friends, though. Like, how are those our friends? Like, so none of it makes any sense to me, and it's not out of where I don't. My understanding of patriotism is not what some people's understanding of patriotism is. Waving a flag, saying, hoorah, I'm going to go join up the military and shoot some motherfuckers. That's all bullshit. That's all nationalism nonsense. I'm patriotic by doing everything I do with my son, so when I let them go out in the world, they can go out and do the same thing and make the world a better place. I volunteered to coach at a youth club that I don't have a kid in because for me, that makes the world a better place. If I give back and this kid learns something, you know what? Chances are he's going to become a high school wrestler, then maybe a college wrestler. Then maybe he comes back and he coaches 30 kids to do. So it's all going to. That's patriotism. I actually, for me, social media never upsets me until we talk about war stuff. We tend to have this way of dehumanizing people from another country. Now, I'm a big student of the wars that we've had. Like I've got a bunch of books on different generals. I got a bunch of books on from Abe Lincoln to George Washington to the Vietnam conflict and all that stuff that I've read. I watch all the Ken Burns documentaries on the different wars and stuff like that. And there's a lot of stuff that goes on with this stuff that just doesn't make any sense in the sense of it's the last war that made any sense to me was World War II. And that was a situation where we used to be like
we got forced into that one.
Well, we wanted to be forced into that one.
Yeah.
We were egging them on to go ahead and do something to us. We moved our entire fleet of battleships to Hawaii to make it a target for this situation because we wanted to get involved. But we needed to be provoked. This stuff that's going on now, I don't know. It just seems out of line to me that we're always sticking a stick in a hornet's nest, hoping for something to happen. But what I was saying was the social media thing actually gets me a little bit riled up when I see all these knuckleheads who are cheering on killing people in World War III and stuff like that. And these memes that are being posted. And I'm like, listen, I got 18-year-old sons. First, I don't want them gone. Secondly, it's not just this big selfish thing I'm talking about my own kids. I don't want your kids to go either. Look at all these kids that we coach. Do I want to see them 15 years from now and they're missing an arm and a leg and every other goddamn thing? I went to Washington and my partner for the week, we were doing a lobbying thing for wheelchair funding, was a guy that had one arm blown off, part of one hand blown off, and both legs blown off on a IED, roadside bomb that he ran over. And he'll never be the same. No matter what equipment they give him, he'll never be the same. And my question is, and his question was too, at that point, what for?
Yeah.
What? And he had no outs. He was a kid from like Kentucky. He had no education. It was pretty much what he was going to end up doing was joining the army. He did that. He's blown up, and I just want to know what for. Those people weren't coming here. That's not how that was going to happen. So when I see these guys rah rah and everything else, I think that they watch too many movies, and I think that they don't see the human aspect of it. If you read about Vietnam, we were killing 100 of them for every one of us that was getting killed, and we were losing 150 boys a day at one point. That means that hundreds, tens of thousands of those guys were getting whacked. And you're not talking about just soldiers. You're talking about, when you're in their country, women and children. And these are still human beings, whether they're slanty-eyed or however you want to, like, the name that they gave them, like these people like saying that they're, towel heads or all this stuff. Those are still human beings. We in wrestling, I think we run into more of them than other sports. We run into more Muslims. It's in those countries, in Iraq and Iran, that's a national pastime. Wrestling's a much bigger sport in those countries than it is in our country. So the Muslims that I run into, they're wonderful. Yeah. They're some of the most American, Adidas wearing, Nike wearing, football cheering, taking their kids to every sport and everything else. People, they're still human beings. They want the best thing for their kids. They want their families to be safe. I don't even know what the ratio is now. I'm sure it's better to 100 than 100 to 1 because we don't hardly lose that many boys in these conflicts now. But when we blanket bomb an area, I'm positive we're killing hundreds of thousands of those guys. So I have a moral issue with war in the first place. There better be a good goddamn reason why we're going to lose somebody's son that I know. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, and we've got all these, like, how many promising athletes are out there? I'll tell you, okay, so I'm the guy that, maybe it's because I'm a paralyzed guy. Being handicapped sucks. It fucking blows. This is some bullshit stuff. So I don't want to see that. It bothers me. And I think we've lost faith in, my family's been a military family forever and ever. It stopped at my father, and it stopped because they sent him to Vietnam, and he was a Marine there, and he saw things that he didn't want to see, and he didn't want his son to see those things. So then that's this exact same report that he gave me, I gave to my sons. Now we're not a military family anymore. So, if I could trust my government a little bit more, I think I would, be involved in the military. And I think that's another legitimate career that is without a college degree. You could be a lifer, and it's probably a great career as far as your benefits go.
And your pension and all that stuff.
You're 38 years old and you're retired.
Yes. Yeah, you put in your 25 years.
20, I thought it was
or 20 years. Well, I think it depends on what you're in and where you're at. But 20, 25 years, and you retire with full retirement.
Right, and some guys even stick around for 30 or something like that, so they're...
Depending on, it's different
58
packages
or whatever when they're out of there. But still, right, it's a terrific package. I know a guy who was in Britain. There was no war going on at the time. They went off base, and he was diving into a pool. He dove into a pool, broke his neck, and he was pretty much the same situation as me from 18 years old on. He got a house paid for by the military. He got his full military benefits for the rest of his life. Then he could get his job. Now, the beauty thing about his situation was those benefits were not tied to what he makes. So somebody gets, paralyzed like me, and you're just working in the private sector. If you don't have great insurance, you're either on welfare and then you can't make any money, or you better be able to get out there and make some money. Now, I was dead set that I wasn't going to do the welfare thing, so I went headlong into working, and it worked out. But welfare in this country is a trap. Yes. If you make more than $23,000, they take away the benefits that were helping you keep everything afloat in the first place. If you're just a guy who is getting $12,000 in benefits because you got 2 kids and you're trying to keep everything going, and you make $22,000 and someone offers you a promotion to make $6,000 more, you can't take it.
Well, and we saw it a lot when Amy was actually doing recruiting for a warehouse. and they were hiring part-time seasonal help, but they're doing 40 hours a week. And there were so many people, she'd come home just shaking her head going, well, they said, well, no, because I'll lose my welfare if I take this job, and then I have to go, it's going to be a big process to get it back again, even though for 6 weeks I'll make a lot more than I do on welfare.
Yeah, but you only get enough to cover the
But
welfare.
that's the problem is
Right.
it's like, so I'm better off to make a little bit less on welfare and not work than I am to go and work.
Well, not work. That's not it. You have to work to get welfare.
No, but that many
Not
hours,
work more,
full
yeah.
time,
Well,
full
the
time at
right, being a handicapped guy,
$16 an hour,
right.
and
Being a
that kind of
handicapped
stuff.
guy, we see it all the time. There are literally people that in November are like, listen, I can't come to work anymore because I'm a handicapped guy, and they work at a hospital or something like that, answering phones. They're like, what do you mean? They're like, well, if I work any more, I've hit the cap. They're going to remove my Medicare from me. And the guy's like in a wheelchair, and wheelchairs will cost you anywhere from $6,000 to $40,000. So if the guy's got a $40,000 wheelchair to pay for, he's like, you're going to pay me another $3,000 this year. I cannot come to work anymore, or I will lose my benefits to pay for a $40,000 wheelchair.
Isn't Social Security almost the same concept?
Social Security is
Where
sort
you
of,
can only make so much money?
yes, and then you get taxed on your Social Security.
Yes. So I mean,
another one
it's still
right.
the same thing of,
It's a trap.
you've already paid into it.
Right.
You should be able to get the full payment right out.
Well, okay, so that's the one candidate that Andrew Yang, his thing is to give everybody $1,000 a month as a freedom dividend is what he's calling it, but it replaces welfare. So if you were somebody on welfare, you get this instead of that. And if you really listen to his plan, I know, so I hate to say it on a podcast because we don't have time, but the first time I heard that this guy wanted to give you $1,000, I'm like, this fucking crap.
He's nuts, yeah.
This is absolutely fucking nuts. When he lays out exactly what we're spending and the productivity that it stops from people, and like people don't have I don't want anyone to walk away from a conversation with me thinking that I think that the reason that somebody doesn't want to work is because they're lazy. It's because they can't cover themselves for what's going on. There are people that are put into all kinds. My personal situation, I made so much money before I got injured that I had a cushion where I could be like, my house is paid for, my cars are paid for. I could work myself into a situation where I could make money. If I was flying by the seat of my pants, I had 3 kids, no way to feed them, I would be bound to being on welfare because I'd be like, fuck, like how am I going to pay for all this shit?
Can't get a new car.
No.
Can't get a
So when
reliable.
the minute that you make over the $23,000, they yank your food stamps from you. If you're someone who's in Section 8 housing, they now you're paying your rent. All of a sudden, you're taking away $15,000 a year worth of stuff, and you're going to give me a $5,000 raise. Only a fool would do it that way because I can't make it work this way. And then the other problem is, it's actually where the line is at is the other problem. If the line was at $30,000, well, maybe you could make it fly if you could make 35. But when the line's at 23, you cannot cover your complete life on 20. Nobody can afford to live in this area on $23,000 a year. So that supplement of $12,000 that comes in makes it possible to live. But if you only had 5,000 more, well, no, you're in trouble now. Like you can't make your payments on your rent, and you can't,
Well, that's the thing where you've had a couple different politicians or different people. Not saying I trust any politician, but you've had a couple of them come out with, we want to do more of a progressive scale where instead of just ripping out your welfare, you'll start breaking it down to get less and everything else.
Sure.
And the problem is how the opposing politician runs off of it is they're trying to take away your benefits. They're racist. They're this, they're that.
Yeah.
And the reality is, no, they're trying to give you an opportunity to work your way out rather than saying, okay, we're going to drop your benefits,
Right.
but we're not getting rid of them.
Sure.
And the problem is everyone hears they're taking away benefits and doesn't see we're letting you work out of and better yourself.
I really hate the racist thing that people like. That's a left thing that drives me nuts. Like they can find racism in almost any single thing. and it almost is it's a fling that flips back on them and says you must be racist because there are quite a few more white people that are on welfare than there are black people on welfare in the first place. So if you're saying it's racist that they're taking their welfare away, you're assuming that it's black people that you're taking the welfare away
Well,
from.
just like when they first came out with drug testing, if you want to be on welfare, you want to be on welfare, you got to take a drug test once a year, like Florida, and I think there's like 8 states that have that now.
I think that if you look into it, there were a bunch of states that tried it and that failed. Like they did not. The program itself, I want to say that Colorado and Arkansas were 2 states that did it, that it failed. So they said, okay, we're going to start drug testing for welfare, and the amount that the program cost
Was more than what it
way
was
exceeded,
costing.
like 5 times exceeded what they actually caught in abuse
Yeah.
in the situation. And I even when those reports came out that said it cost $20,000 in abuse that we found, but it would cost $100,000 to run the program. I saw people that were still like, but it's the principle. I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
when it's
it's
business,
racist. Well, and then
when it's business though, there's no principle. It's
but
bottom line.
instantly it came out as racist. That was the first offense.
See, I
to
didn't
it.
see it as
That was actually they had parades, they had people protesting in the streets all over the place because
Right,
the
just for
original thing
anybody
was
listening, Eric comes from the right and I come from the left, so you're definitely getting a different, thing.
yeah,
And I mean,
we're
I've
not
done
on
a
the
terrific
same
job
side.
not egging you into a political conversation, but
and I
you
think
would
for the
hear
most part we've kept it pretty
yeah,
neutral.
you would hear it differently than I would though, because you're getting comments directed towards you, I guess, that are coming from the left. I get more comments directed towards me that are coming from the right.
Well, I looked at it more because when I was union and everything else, I was diehard Democrat. For years. It's
Right.
only been probably the last 4 years where I kind of started becoming a little bit more Republican. But
Yeah, I'm not either. So
honestly, a lot of it was more back then. It was like I'm just very big on not the first step always being racist when it's not there. When you're starting to call people bigots, racist, everything else, it's fine if it's warranted, but when it isn't the bearing of it, now you're just trying to cause problems to get your way rather than
sure.
the reality of
I didn't see that program as racist or not racist. Or I didn't even put that to it. All I said when I saw that stuff was, listen, if you can save money doing it, fine. But the minute that you tell me that it cost you 80% more to try and find a problem, then I don't need
Yeah,
that shit.
no.
Stop doing that because you're just wasting money.
well, and who it's going to hurt is us in the middle class that are actually they're going to raise our taxes to fund a failing program, which honestly is how government works.
Well, I mean, I'm fine with you testing it out, but if the returns are less than for me, there's no principle on it. I don't care about that stuff at all. All I care about is did you save money? If you didn't save money, then forget it. And the other thing that it showed was that we don't have a drug problem in the welfare class. Like that's not. And I mean, if you think about it, so I would say I was never a Republican, and I've never been a Democrat either. But I would say I know for sure that in my family I was the conservative capitalist pig. I owned a construction company, non-union. I was poo-pooed about unions. I'm like, oh fuck them, like lazy, break taking. I was non-union. We were working 60, 70 hours a week. I would pay my guys overtime and stuff like that. I even was a guy who, before healthcare became a big issue, I would buy it for my permanent employees. They got Blue Cross Blue Shield. If you got a sore throat, go to the doc. You got your little card, go. And, they were happy about that. And then we always had workman's comp. You had to have workman's comp to pull permits for jobs. So, I mean, I went over and above what a non-union shop would do, but I had no use for the union per se because I felt like they were just robbing you of the dues and everything else. Now, I had the unique situation where I broke my neck, and for 4 months I got to look at a ceiling for a while and really think about shit. And I became far more progressive and more, I say liberal, because I was always liberal when it came to, I do not care what gay people do. You want to get married, get married. I don't care what sex you feel like you are. That's fine. If you, I firmly believe that there are people that were born the wrong sex. That there's, like, you can look at them and be like, that woman absolutely thinks she's a man and always has, or that man thinks he's a woman, sort of thing. Like, look at him. He's got heels on and
But
shit.
the difference is that's your belief and that's fine, but don't force it on me. Make me
Right.
address it. And that's where I think the biggest disconnect comes in society is not the fact of accepting them. You can accept them, you know, it's not being against gay people, but if you don't support them, well, I'm not against them. So supporting them,
No.
yeah, you know, but that's where you hear a lot of different things. I've heard a lot of different things with, like say Chick-fil-A. They don't, they have gay employees that work for them, but because they don't support the LGBTQRST, whatever the code is.
Popeye sandwich is better anyway.
It actually is, but but because they don't support them and donate to them and everything else, that community kind of went after them. It's like, but
I didn't go after him. In fact, I used to get a Chick-fil-A makes really nice chicken nuggets and they make a good chicken sandwich. I used to get a chicken sandwich when I was around a fig chicken fillet every once in a while. And when it came out that this guy spends a lot of money, like millions of dollars a year, on things like gay conversion therapy clinics and stuff like this, and then groups that are kind of, they've been labeled as hate groups against the gay community, I did stop buying. And the only reason I stopped buying was I don't want my dollars to go towards things like that. I believe it's hard enough to be a gay person, let alone to have a group that's out there trying to pray away the gay for me. Like, hey, knock that shit off. And like, if you own a business, I think that's just a bad idea. For me, it's a real bad idea to do the political stuff that I do on social media because I'm positive I've lost work over having a side that I'm on when it comes to political stuff. I'm
oh,
positive.
I've actually I've had a job or two that, you know, they'd find out that I actually supported Trump or anything like that, and oh no, we found another contractor, and you
Well,
can
if
see
you're in
it.
the Midwest, though, it's probably a benefit to support Trump here.
You know what? It's going back and forth.
Yeah.
But as many jobs as I might have lost, it's
Well,
only one or two.
let's take the gay the guy that wouldn't bake the gay cake.
Yeah.
Right. I think business wise, it's a terrible idea to do it that way. Now he's had the opposite effect of what you're talking about. He's been GoFundMe's have been started to pay for this guy's thing. If you were a regular businessman and you were like, all right, I'm not going to take gay dollars, but I'm only going to take straight dollars, and I'm going to make people aware that I won't take gay dollars. There's all kinds of people that are straight that are related to gay people that wouldn't put up with that kind of shit. They're not going to buy a cake from you. Now, gay people, money's green from anybody who's got the money. So yeah, I think it's a bad business choice, but I do think it's his choice to not do however he does. If we didn't have Chick-fil-A was also propped up by a lot of people that were like, we're all going to Chick-fil-A because they hate the gays.
Or we're going to protest them and we're going to shut them down on Sundays, or we're
Right,
going to do.
right.
Yeah, you got both extremes with it.
Right. But I would rather not give my money to them. And then I would drive farther to go to Costco because they pay their employees a living wage than I'd go to Sam's. And it's partly because I'd like to see people paid a living wage, but it's also because I guarantee you, if you go to Sam's and deal with 5 employees and you go to Costco and deal with 5 employees, you're going to have a better time dealing with these 5 smiling employees than you're going to deal with. Maybe 1 or 2 of the 5 are going to be in a good mood on that day at Sam's, but a lot of them are going to be like down in the mouth. They don't want to fucking help you. They make $8 an hour. Yeah. These guys make 15.
Well,
so,
and just like supporting any business, one of the things that I look at, and it's funny having my own business now, how much my eyes have opened. Things you don't pay attention to, and just like there are pros and cons. One of the things I've done since I've started my business is I donate to a lot of local community, different things. Manhattan fireworks for Labor Day. New Attic's football program. I've
Yeah, do you
donated.
get a little something like on the program or?
No,
Oh,
I might get.
I donate to the
I might get a little
choir.
shout out or something like that
That's
at
good.
football games.
You should.
But it's an aspect of it's not kind of like you said with coaching. I'm not doing it just for the aspect of getting my advertisement. My main thing is this is help funding these kids to give them the shot, and that's one of the things like even getting a haircut now. I won't go to the big chains. I go to the
I've
local
always gone to
barbers
the
and stuff
barber,
like
yeah,
that. And those are the things that people tend to forget. They look at the convenience of it, but how many baseball programs or football programs is to sponsor Walmart? Is to sponsor
Oh
J.C.
no,
Penney's?
right.
Is to
And
sponsor?
besides that, they've ruined so many small towns and everything else. You used to go to like Morris was a great little town with a terrific little main street. It's all dead. It's all gone. The Big R and the Walmart killed it all. So I mean,
But those are the things that
Amazon has killed it all too. I go do
Yeah.
miles at the mall, and it's a ghost town in there. It's dead. I don't know what businesses are safe from that sort of thing, and it seems like in this country, and that this is some of the, I had a podcast the Monday night, and the guy's like, I'm like, do you consider yourself a conservative, and he goes, oh no, definitely conservative, and I'm like, can you explain to me a conservative ideology that you've thought out completely and that works for the middle class? Because the reason I'm not a conservative is because they don't. If I give a tax cut to a wealthy company, that does not help the middle class, because all that guy does is pocket the money. Like he's not gonna run around handing out raises because he got money. That's not how this works, because he knows, first off, he may have money right now. If he hands out raises, then he's got to pay him that all the time. If a new guy comes into office and he loses that tax cut,
well, and in the same aspect, he gets the big tax cut. There's a good chance that he might open up another shop. He might open up.
that's
It-
never.
it's always a possibility.
No, it's not.
depending
That's
on
not a
the business.
possibility. How's that a possibility? You're a masonry guy. If someone gives you a tax cut, did that create more masonry work for you?
If someone gave me a tax cut, no. But I'm looking
So how
at
do you open
I'm,
another
I'm
shop?
looking at a business. It is like a retail business.
Okay, you make screen doors. You own the screen door plant, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the government says, hey, we've got this thing. Everyone that makes screen doors is gonna pay no taxes. Can you open another plant?
Yeah.
No.
Honestly.
Why? You're not making any more screen doors. How the fuck you open another plant?
But you can actually become a little bit more competitive if you wanted to. Drop your price just a hair, but your quantity
No,
that
no,
you're
no, no.
sending
You
out.
don't have any. No, you have no more demand for until the people that buy screen doors from you have more money. You have more money.
Well, I'm not talking about in the same area. You might end up looking for a place.
But the demand for
another-
screen doors did not go up, is what I'm saying to you. So until the demand for screen doors goes up, how do you open another plant? You don't have any more screen doors to make. And granted, you could go to another area, but they already had screen doors there. So like, how are you gonna? Like, what I'm saying is,
I see what you're saying,
if
but
you
in the
give the
same
middle
aspect,
class a tax cut and not the owner of the business a tax cut, he's already got.
and I agree with you on that aspect.
Right.
I'm not arguing
own
that
a
aspect.
business. I
I'm
made
saying
5
that-
times as much money as all my employees did,
Yeah.
right? So, do I need a tax cut? No. If everybody who was an entry level guy had a tax cut, I would get more siding jobs. I would get more roofing jobs. As a real estate broker, if college debt was forgiven, which is another one that makes, I know, conservative guys have, but that would open up all kinds of people could run out and buy houses. And if you buy a house, what do you need? You need masonry work fixed. You need a roof on that house. You're going to need a driveway done. You're going to need painting done. This is what moves the economy. There is not, so this is one of those conservative things that like I try and wrap my brain around, but I never come up with an answer that is suitable as far as if you look at where the tax, brackets or tax rates went for the top tax earners and then the middle class since the late 60s, early 70s, it's almost flattened out so that the burden has been removed off of the wealthy. That's not going to work out because these people down here can't carry the tax burden because these are the people that make the people wealthy.
Well, and Now, I'm not a typical conservative or Republican or anything like that.
Right. But I mean,
One of my
attracts you
beliefs,
to
well,
it?
one of my beliefs has always been what I've always thought would be the solution for a lot of that aspect is a straight tax percent, but
Never
no
pay
write-offs.
wealthy people.
It'll never happen.
No, because
It would never happen.
There's 93 Fortune 500 companies right now that make billions of dollars that pay zero tax.
Well, that's what I said. It would never happen. But the reality is, if everyone paid, say, 6% tax, no write-offs, whether you make
Now,
$1 trillion
I can tell you
or
why.
you make $20,000.
I can tell you why I would be against that too. Okay, and it comes from
Well,
the.
I got write-offs, so it would be.
It's not even that. It's not even that. My situation is this: I owned a company that had 5 guys that worked for my company. In my company, those 5 guys hopefully learned how to read, write, and do arithmetic from the public schools, right? Mm-hmm. Those 5 guys drive trucks to work, and I have 2 work trucks and a trailer that we're using on the roads. So I need, as a business owner, to pay back money into the public school system because my crew, I make money from them. They learn how to read, write, and do arithmetic at the school, right? So it's only right that I pay into it. My trucks are on the road hauling shit, doing whatever. I got a Bobcat behind it, whatever going on. I'm deteriorating the road, so I got to pay taxes to pay back into. So there's roads, right? Because for me, it's obviously working out quite nicely that there's roads because I can get to my job and make the money that I'm making. You need to extrapolate that out to Jeff Bezos, who has 100,000 employees or more than that. He's got 100,000 semi-trucks who are way destroying the road way more than I am. He pays $0 into.
Oh, and like I said, I didn't argue that.
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying to you is, under that theory, shouldn't Jeff Bezos pay a larger percentage of taxes than the guy who's got 5 employees?
Well,
He's doing far more damage.
But what you're not seeing, and I get it, but he's still paying the same percent, but Jeff Bezos is worth, say, $6 billion.
Yeah, but
so
isn't
his
Jeff
6%,
Oh, I understand that.
his 6% is going to be a heck of a lot more
I still
money
think
going towards the roads, not only counting him, how much of the trucking companies are subcontracted? How much of that aren't his? But I mean, you have
Do you see all the Amazon Prime trucks running around
Yeah,
now?
I know
new.
they got rid of a lot of the semis.
I think they're going to sink the
But to get to the
post
distribution
office.
center, you have all the regular companies. A lot of your regular companies are actually distributing stuff to the distribution center. So
I
I'm
would
not talking
think
about
if you
going
did
out as much. I'm talking about going in.
Right. If
So-
you did the math on what Jeff Bezos is taking out of the system in the way of the education that he's using, the potholes that he's putting in, just everything that he's using to make $11 billion, I would say on the average, he's earning more per employee than I was earning on my employees. And he's making $11 billion in 1 year. That's more money than I could have made in like 10,000 years. He's still getting out of the system a far bigger percentage than I was getting out of the system. And all I'm saying is if you're going to pay your fair share for what you're taking out of the system and not be a parasite, you got to pay a bigger percentage into the system.
But you can always go, like I said, you're paying more into the system if it's a flat fee.
I'm
if it's
saying
a
you
flat
need to
fee.
pay
But
even more.
you're saying that you should pay even more than
Yeah.
that, and that's fine to say. You know what? If you do get over, say you make over $1 million, now you go up to 7%. Now, but have
That's progressive though.
But it would be progressive.
Right.
But you're paying 1 more percent. It's not that you're paying trillions, but that 1%.
But you know you're not, right?
That 1% could be more. But I'm saying no write-offs.
No, I understand what you're saying, but you also got to take into consideration that there is a cap on Social Security contribution. So a guy makes $128,000,
Yes.
he stops paying into that. Where when you're making your money, you're paying 100% of the rate. You're paying 7% into Social Security. Jeff Bezos, he paid Social Security for like 1 day in January, and then he never paid into Social Security again. His percentage that he's paying into Social Security is so fucking... Now, why is that? We're all in this thing together. You're making the most... You're making a
But that's where everything needs to be rewritten and readjusted, and just like the toll roads.
right.
What were they? What were the
I'm just
purpose
saying
of the
though,
toll roads? It was to pay for
right.
the roads.
The
The same
system
thing with the
that we're
lottery
on,
was supposed to go to the school system.
the system that we're on allows people like Jeff Bezos to do what he's doing. And I mean, I'm picking right now on one guy, the
Well, look at all the
Bill
politicians.
Gates, the Waltons, all these people are in the same exact boat where they're worth, for the people who own Walmart to be worth, there's four of them and they're worth $50 billion a piece. That's a $200 billion enterprise that these people have. And they can't pay their employees enough for them not to qualify for welfare that I have to pay for.
Yep.
That-
Oh, I agree with you.
It's so wrong.
And like I said, there's got to be. The problem is the ball's been dropped for so long that just like saying minimum wage.
See, I'd like to get somebody on the
minimum wage
podcast.
wants to go up to. They want it to go up to $15 from whatever it is, $8.50 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But the only problem is, and me personally, I don't support that. I do over
Have you
time.
seen those proposals?
I've seen some of them. I haven't seen a
But
lot.
they're always a
They're-
proposal like when they were
And you have to be
proposing-
full time. A lot of them are.
No. When they were proposing, because there was a big push for that in 2016 presidential campaign, right? But it wasn't until the $15 wouldn't have taken effect. It took place over time. It would have been 2021 before people were making 50. It was like $1 a year raise that was happening in that situation. It was not. There was no proposal that I saw anywhere that said, okay, today on December 30th, you're making $8 an hour, but on January 1st, you're going to make 15.
Now, most of them I saw were a 3-year progressive.
You know,
ju-
most
just
of the
like
ones
a
I saw were
contract.
5, but yeah.
And I did see a couple that were 5. A lot of them I saw were 3. And then the other issue with it,
The one in Illinois was $1.10 a year that you're going to
Is
raise.
that what it was?
$1.10, $1.10, $1.10.
you know, and the biggest problem with jumping it too quickly is it's never good because all you're doing is raising the poverty rate almost. Because minimum
Yeah.
wage is supposed to be at the bottom, but now a lot of them I read had the stipulation this minimum wage increase is only guaranteed through you have to work X amount of hours to make that
what I would
wage.
like to
I read a
see-
couple of those that you
I'd
have
like to
to
see
work
it be-
32 hours.
Sure, I'd like to see it be a company that has 50 employees or more.
No.
If you had 50 employees, there's no reason that you should not pay everybody a wage where I'm not paying for your welfare sort of situation. Now so like I said, and we've talked about this at length before. I have less of a political ideology than I do a mind for a solution and a problem. And I see a problem when there is a family worth $200 billion and most of their employees, I'm paying for their health care because they're on welfare.
Yes.
Like, that's a problem to me because you're so wealthy and then the burden is being put on the middle class. So when you got a company like Verizon or GE or Amazon, and they're paying zero taxes into a system, but some of their employees, until just a year and a half ago, a lot of Amazon employees were the same thing. They were making $9 an hour. So you got a guy who's making $10 billion. He's living the most fantastic life that ever could. And I'm supplementing his employee health care program. That's
Well,
not right.
and those are things that realistically should be adjusted for big. But the problem is,
But with a conservative
you have to
mindset,
look
how
at-
do you do that?
But
You got to sign Grover Norquist's pledge to not raise any taxes, but you have to raise taxes.
Yes.
This has to happen.
But like I said, but you can do. The problem is, half the constituents for the politicians are big business. Some of the
That's
bigger donors.
huge, right.
That's a whole different topic. We can talk about different.
Publicly funded elections need to happen.
But
so we don't have that
it's
situation.
where that big businesses, once your business or you as an owner or corporation is worth X amount of dollars, you can almost do a progressive minimum wage scale for employees. You know, if your business is worth like a Walmart where they're making $50 billion each a year, so you got a $200 billion business, okay, your minimum
That's our
wage,
net worth for all 4 kids.
yes, but I'm saying though, but your minimum wage for your business for X amount of employees should come out to minimum of this percent.
Oh,
You,
yeah,
you know,
something.
I mean, it would
Because,
be a solution, but the problem is, it's a solution in our eyes, but that doesn't mean it's a solution that government's going to pass to lose that donor for their political gain.
sure.
You know,
Now my sons are 18, and they make more, far more than the minimum wage right now. As a contractor, there was never a time in my contracting life, and I mean, you have to extrapolate this out to 20 years ago. 20 years ago, I was starting guys out 20, that's a long fucking time ago, at $12 an hour.
Yeah.
And sometimes it was, we're going to go $12 an hour cash, and then when I give you the raise to make you 13 at the end of the year, you're going to start paying taxes because, we're going to try you out for a little bit first here. So, like, I was always in a position where they were going to get paid a living wage as far as they could. If you worked, and that was the other thing too, you made $12 an hour, but we worked 60 hours a week. You were bringing home $720 in a week. You could pay the rent.
yeah,
You could pay a car payment. In fact, most of my employees, like if they were working out, I'd be like, "Hey, Bobby," I go, "What's going on, man? What's going on with that piece of shit truck you got?" They're like, "What do you mean?" I go, "Don't you think you should get a new truck?" And he's like, "Yeah, I was thinking maybe I should." And I go, "Yeah, you should get a new truck." I would convince them to go buy themselves a truck with a payment because now I own you. Because now you got to come to work. If you just everything's paid for in your life and you're like 19 years old, you get a little money in your pocket, you'd be like, "Oh, fuck going to work. I'm gonna go do what I want to do." So like, that was
the only downfall to that is, especially with your own kids, when they are making good money working with you and everything else, especially during the summers or the beginning of fall. The downfall that we found, especially having the two 16-year-olds working with us, was when they were making good money. Now it's like, what the hell you buy them for Christmas?
Right.
Because they were making such good money. Almost anything that they wanted, they saved up for during the, the season. And you're like,
you know what I
son
do?
of a bitch, you guys are killing
I
me.
turned the tables on my guys with that. I looked at them this year and I said, "Hey, you two guys in a summer made $6,000 a piece." I go, "You know what I'd like for Christmas? I'd like an auto start on my car. It's $250 up at Best Buy. You both work a grown man's job. You can afford to buy me more than a t-shirt. This is what I want for Christmas." And I mean, granted, I spend more than that on them. They both got shotguns and throwers and all that other stuff. But it's time to nut up, boys. You guys make money, so do it that way. And then they got things that they wouldn't ever thought to buy anyway. But for me, I like that my guys make a grown man's wage and everything else. But I also have to keep it not too tempting. Like the one boy was like, "So I'm going to quit." I go, "Well, you're not. Every summer, even when you're at college, we'll still do this kind of work. You'll have money in your pocket. But then when you get out of college, you have your degree and you're looking for that job with this degree, we can just keep doing this for maybe 20 weeks. More money in your pocket and go do that." But so, okay, I don't want to keep you too much. You gotta blaze out of here and get to practice. But I want people to understand that, like, if you look at my social media, me and Eric will get into back and forths that are pretty good where we don't agree on very much.
But we never get belligerent with each other.
People will read it as belligerent online, but I don't have any problem with the guy. We just had a conversation where no one got shitty with each other and everything else. I mean, so, this is how it can be. The people that I see on social media that are like, just blanket statements about Democrats or blanket statements about Republicans or blanket statements about conservatives or liberals or however it is, like, it disturbs me to see people wearing "I'd rather be with Russia than the Democrats." That's not right. That is our political adversary, or geographic or geopolitical, however you want to put it, adversary, and your fellow American is not. That's your fucking neighbor. So figure out how to have a conversation with somebody. And the social media thing, that's one of the reasons for the podcast, is because, and I mean, there's times where, like, my buddy Tony, I'll go out to lunch, we'll have deep discussions where we don't really agree on a topic, but we never leave it like, "I don't hate that guy."
Well, and part of the problem is too, someone will hear someone make a comment. Problem is, what's never really done enough is, well, what do you mean by that? just asking them,
Well,
let them
that's
get
the other
more in
problem
depth
with
to
social
it.
media is
But and that's
it's
the
too
problem with
much to
social
type.
media. No one wants to actually go, what direction are you going into? What do you mean by that? Well, did you look at this angle of it?
We all have
No one
jobs.
wants
It's
to
all
open up.
hard to
Yeah.
like to do that thing. I mean, I get caught up where I'm spending too much time on social media, and I'm trying to run here and run there and everything else. And I mean, I'm lucky. I'm a guy who, like I said, sleeps like 6 hours a night. So like, I'm cool at 2 in the morning to still be like typing some nonsense. Um, but I would like to get more people on that have. I would still like to get someone with a conservative ideology to explain to me like why I should vote that way. Because I only see things through the eye of if I take a step way back, will it help the middle class be stronger? Like the lake, the fish tank, this is an ecosystem. If all I do in the lake is keep producing the largest fish and put them in the lake's going to die. But if I go in the lake and I make sure that there is an abundant, strong, breeding minnow population in the lake's going to do great because I'm going to have plenty of minnows. The big fish are going to get really big. Everything's going to be healthy. It's going to have plenty to eat. So when I see a plan that's progressive and it makes sure that the billionaire that makes $11 billion pays $5 billion towards the things that help the middle class. The middle class are the people who buy the stuff. Like we did the screen door thing. If the middle class had more money, if wages were raised, I'm going to sell more screen doors because there's guys out there that
Oh, and I agree
don't
with
buy
you,
screen
that's fine.
doors because they can't afford the screen door because they can't make the money. So, but if on the other hand, the government makes it tax-free for me, I'm not going to sell more screen doors. I can't create more, and I hate that.
Well, and
Most
that's
people don't
that's
create
where I
jobs.
looked at more at. I was looking at when you're talking about the screen doors as business is booming enough that he's getting a tax break and he can put back into the company.
Right,
Not
but
not the
can't I-
aspect of you were looking at it as in this is what the market is. We're just going to give you extra money in your pocket.
But
And
if you have demand for twice as many screen doors, then you have a necessity to open a plant. You can
Yes.
actually hire more people. You're going to fill more orders. This thing's all going to work out better. If I just have more money in my hand temporarily, and the big problem is when that happens, and that's what's going on now, is corporations were cut this big tax break with the Trump tax cut thing. They were given all this money. They bought their own stocks back. Now stocks work like if there's more of a demand for a stock, the stock value goes up. The stock market right now is artificially inflated with all these stock buybacks that they did. It makes it look really good, but that's not real. As soon as that corporation doesn't have that kickback to buy the stocks back again, the stock doesn't keep going up
it's
anymore.
no different than Bush Jr. giving all the big banks and bailing out the big banks and giving them that.
Yeah, that
And
was
then
not
all the
right.
CEOs went and said, wow, I'm giving myself a raise.
Well,
And
that and even those CEOs bought stock in their
in
own
their
company
own banks and everything else.
Yeah.
And that's what I said, instead of
because
it,
it was cheap then.
the theory was if we give it to them, then they'll give out more loans and everything else.
right.
And on paper, it sounds great, but
Yeah.
the problem is society doesn't work that way.
Right.
The trickle down effect is more or less what you're looking at. If the owner
I don't
gets
believe
something,
there is a trickle down effect.
no,
believe
no,
it's
but
an
I,
up.
I mean the trickle down effect in theory should work fine. But the problem is society doesn't allow it to.
Well, the boss doesn't allow it to.
That's what I mean.
If he saw it trickling down, he gets a plumber and he
Yeah.
figures out how to undo all them fucking trickles.
Well,
and
then
keep that money.
I need to keep more for me, and that's the problem.
Right.
Is the trickle down effect is great on paper, but it's not the reality of it. Society won't allow it because big business wants to make more money and more money and more money. And you know what? I've got cattle in my shop. What do I'll just hire more cattle, and then if they're broken, I'll get rid of them and I'll hire new guys.
Yeah, right.
You know, so
Right.
that's the problem. Is the theory of trickle down is great, but the reality is it just doesn't work.
Well, for me, I'm already
most
past the
companies.
theory that it doesn't work. What I know does work is if everybody at the bottom has more, then they spend more,
Yes.
and then it goes to the top. I believe if you took the 30 wealthiest corporations or people on the planet, and this is not something I think should happen, but if there was a social experiment where they removed all the wealth from them, and they went to the bottom 25% of people, the people who have nothing, and they just handed that money out to all of them. In 10 years, all that money go right back to those exact same people. Because those people that have nothing would just run out to Walmart and buy a bunch
They
of
wouldn't
shit.
know. They wouldn't know. I mean, you hear that with the lottery winners, where a lottery
go
winner,
broke.
yeah, within 3 years, they've already pissed away every dime that they made.
Well, they made bad investments,
yes,
and
and-
but somebody got that money.
Yes, it went back into the economy, but the reality is, if you're not educated into how to survive, and that comes from your parents, that comes from your school system, it should be coming from our school system a little better.
Right. So my analogy is this one: if there was a lottery where $1 billion was going to be given to one person, that'd be the conservative plan. We're trying to funnel as much money into one person as possible. Where the other plan would be to take that $1 billion, split it into $100,000, and give it to 100,000 people, and that'd be the same amount of money. But if you had 100,000 or 10,000 people that had $100,000, that's better for the economy. Because they've all got $100,000. They're going to spend the money. It's going to go somewhere. This guy's going to put it in an offshore account and never touch it.
Well, and that's where, I mean, we both agree on diversification is the key to any business. And
For sure.
if you're really looking to get the economy, if you look at it as like a corporation and you want to make the economy grow, you got to diversify the funds
Right.
so it can be split into every other company to grow. Because like you said, if you put it into one, he's only going to have one direction. How many other places fall apart?
Right.
But no, like you said, with that aspect, as far as business, and I agree 100%. And that's where one of the things when I started my business was I always wanted to, the more successful I got, I wanted to make sure I was giving back. And to me, with success comes responsibility. And by me putting back into the communities, doing stuff like that, it helps in my business in retrospect, because the more money people have, the cheaper it is for their sports because they got more sponsors and everything else. Well, now instead of spending $2,000 for them to play volleyball,
Right.
if it only costs them $250, maybe, you know what, we need this quick home repair. I can swing that to get that done, and now, and just like everything else, it's all going back into the economy, whether it's for bricklaying, whether it's for plumbing, but at least if the money's out there, what's the difference?
Sure.
It's just diversifying it,
Right.
spreading it around.
Sure. Yeah, you should always keep a hand in a couple different baskets as far as that goes. It's 2 hours we're on this now, so we should wrap it up here. But come back, we'll talk some more about, whatever with that stuff. Okay, so this is, the part I'm supposed to, like, I check out these videos all the time on like how to grow your YouTube channel and stuff like that. And I'm supposed to, during the conversation, keep breaking off and be like, hey, could you click on the subscribe button? I don't ever do it. I get engrossed in the conversation and I just don't care about it that much. But I would really appreciate it if you're, a friend of Eric's or something and you check out the podcast, please click on the subscribe button. I get to see, with the subscribers, I always kind of keep track of how many subscribers I pick up for every episode. And I tend to pick up some subscribers with every episode, whether I should do more episodes that were like that. Now, I thought the conversation we had was good. I thought we, talked about a lot of things and, nothing got out of hand. Not that it ever would. But, so yeah, please click the subscribe button. If you're listening to the audio version, give us a rating. Right now I'm at 100% on like Apple Podcasts and iTunes, and then Google Play and Stitcher and all the other stuff. But let me have some feedback on what you're thinking. Like I said, I have this other camera set up that I need to get an engineer in here and just have it where it's he can just flip back from one guy to the other guy, sort of a deal.
About 5 years till the kids finish college.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I hope they're not doing that. I hope they got jobs. Yeah, check us out. Let me know how we're doing. I'd like to hear stuff from people and everything else. And then otherwise, thanks, man. I appreciate you coming out.
No
Taking
problem.
some time.
Thank you for having me.
Have some fun at the wrestling practice today.
Oh, yeah.